Are you a crier? Well, I never really considered myself to be a crier. I really got to the point where I learned how to hold those tears back, kind of like Mr. T on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
It's enough to make a grown man cry, but not this man. Get back in there, Tia.
So you don't do tears. I get it. I went a long time without doing tears myself. I got to the point where I felt like tears were just a waste of time. They left your face all puffy, you felt silly, and you had to drink a lot of water because, of course, you dehydrated yourself, right? I used to think it was just me, but over the years, I've come across other people who have shared that they got their tears back too. So is there a benefit to crying, or is crying just, what ladies do when they don't get their way? Well, maybe you like me. I had let that kind of stigma, that stereotype paint my view of crying. And so I came to the point where I felt like I just wasn't going to cry anymore. So for a long time, I didn't cry. I mean, I would cry over little things like I love kids. So if kids were singing a song or they said something cute, I'd let a tear flow. Or if I was praying or in worship or something like that, you got to cry with God, so that was okay. But for other things, like if my feelings were hurt or I was disappointed, I just refused to cry. I didn't realize that I was hurting myself by doing so. I thought I was actually making myself stronger. Well, today we're going to talk about that. Why do we stop crying? Well, sometimes we're told that crying is a sign of weakness, or maybe we just feel like that within ourselves, that if I allow something to make me cry, that means I'm weak. Well, that's not true. Number two, crying can make others uncomfortable. Maybe as a child or even as an adult, you found yourself shedding some tears in the company of other people, and you could see all of a sudden that things got weird. Maybe it was a loved one, maybe it was a friend, but all of a sudden the mood changed and they really didn't know how to respond to you. And that can send the message that says, crying is not allowed in my company, right? So that's another reason why we may stop crying. It makes people uncomfortable. Also, sometimes crying releases a flood of emotions that we don't want to feel. And that feeling of being afraid of getting lost in that overwhelming flood, because sometimes when you start to let those tears flow, a flood of emotions does come with it, which actually is a good thing. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Another reason we stop crying is crying over something can keep us feeling connected to negative situations or even people that we're trying to separate ourselves from. So if we feel a sense of pain arising over that situation or that person, and we allow ourselves to feel and therefore cry, then it kind of just seems like that connection is just lingering on and on and on. So the most helpful thing that sometimes we feel like we can do for ourselves is just say, nope, not gonna cry, not gonna let those tears fall. So what happens when we stop crying? What takes place? Well, number one, our hearts get hard and calloused, and nobody wants a hardened heart. I used to feel like if my heart was just hard in a certain area, that it was compartmentalized to that one place. But the truth is, I learned that we only have one heart. And a hardened heart is a hardened heart. Even if it hasn't spread into other areas of life yet, eventually it will. If I use hardening of my heart as a defense, it will eventually spread into areas that I did not want it to touch, but it will become hard all around if I don't allow that heart to get softened again. So it gets our hearts hard and callous. Also, we lose a sense of genuine care and connection with others. If we can't connect with ourselves and be comfortable with our own feelings, even though they may be intense, our own tears, it puts a barrier between us and others, because on the inside, what we're really saying is keep those tears away from me, because I don't even let them flow from myself. Even though we don't say it, people can feel that, and they probably won't be comfortable expressing themselves in that way around us. Now, you might be saying, good, I don't want people crying around me. Well, it's just something to know. It's just something to know. Also, we can develop a hardened exterior, which really is just masking a sense of weakness. And this creates a facade and separates us from our true self. So in other words, if I'm here, but I'm presenting myself here, there's an area of weakness that I'm protecting with this area of hardness. And hardness is not necessarily strength. And we can talk about that another day. But it can create a facade, and we'll live from out of a place that's not genuine in our own lives in an effort to protect ourselves, which is understandable. And I'm sure we've all done that in some way. So when is it okay to hold back those tears? Well, we do want to be free to let the tears flow. We don't want to be a prisoner to forcing ourselves never to cry again. But sometimes it is okay to hold back those tears. For instance, if we're in a social setting where that level of intimacy may not be appropriate for that group, it's okay to let those tears stay back until you're in a place where you're private and even safe. Also, if we're in a setting where we're not around people that are safe, that we feel safe with, if those tears flow, we may be berated and we're not in a place where we can handle that. That's probably a good time to hold those tears until you get to a private place. Also, if you're just in a season of life, and when we live long enough, we get there where it's kind of like, I've just got to put my head down and push this plow forward because I've got to make it. And if you start to cry and let those tears flow too much, you'll get drug into another focus and drug off of task. Well, temporarily, okay? And you know what's best for you. You may have to get to a place where you say, look, I'm not crying about this right now. I'll come back and let those tears flow later. But right now, I've got to stay focused. Just make sure that it's temporary because eventually those things do need to be released. Now, as I mentioned before, gender biases, it's rough on our sons. It's rough on men in the society that we're in because we don't tend to see crying as something that God has given us for us physically. And we're going to read about all the amazing benefits that God has given us through tears. But sometimes the male gender is left out of being able to experience the benefits that God's given us through tears because it's been told to them that if they cry, they're not a man, or if they cry, they're not masculine, or they're not strong. Now, because we are in this society, I would say, let your sons know that it is okay to cry, but they probably don't want to be at school or in front of their peers or, in these different kind of places just crying all the time because that could hurt them. Okay, now you know what's best for you and what's best for your child and what environment they're in, but we do live in this world the way it is right now. But we can help for the next generation by letting them know, look, it is okay to cry. Not only is it okay, but it's natural and it's healthy. And God gave you those tears. But choose a place where you're going to be safe and you're going to be comfortable to let those tears flow. We can help the next generation and this generation with our sons and even our brothers and those that are around us. So men, it's okay to cry. Not only is it okay, but it's a gift that God gave to you, and you don't have to be robbed of that. Now, let's look at some of the benefits. And this, if you just Google, how does crying benefit us? And I'll just read this. It says, crying is a healthy, natural way for the body and mind to process and relieve emotional and physical stress. While there are different types of tears, emotional crying is especially beneficial for psychological well-being. Don't we all need that? Benefits for emotional and mental health. Here we go. It releases stress and toxins. Emotional tears have been found to contain higher levels of stress hormones like cortisol. So just think when you're crying, your body is getting rid of some cortisol. It's flushing these hormones out of our system and helping reduce overall stress. Suppressing those tears can allow stress to build up, which may lead to health problems over time. So even just releasing tears is help flushing toxins out of your body. Also, it soothes the self. The act of crying activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This system helps your body rest and digest and promotes a sense of calmness and relaxation, which counters the fight or flight response. So we're in that fight or flight, heightened awareness of stage. But sometimes when we just go ahead and let those tears flow, maybe we're angry, maybe we're sad, maybe we're discouraged, whatever it is, and we let those tears flow, it will physically, automatically bring us into a parasympathetic, excuse me, let me say it again. It will activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which will automatically cause us to feel calmer. You didn't even have to take a supplement. All you had to do was release what God gave you, which was some tears to help bring your body back into a calm, relaxed state. Also, crying relieves pain and boosts the mood. Crying releases oxytocin and endorphins, which are natural feel-good chemicals in the body. These act as natural painkillers and create a sense of well-being. I didn't know all this when I went to study, and I'm still impressed with how wonderful God is that He put these things within our bodies so that they could work along with our chemical balance and our hormones and our mind, and just everything flows together. He created us as a whole. So also it helps us to process emotions. Crying is a way to acknowledge and work through complex feelings such as grief, frustration, or sadness. It can help provide a cathartic release, allowing you to move toward emotional healing. So even crying helps bring us to emotional healing. I know you probably already knew this. I didn't know. This is news to me. Also, it aids sleep. By reducing anxiety, stress, and pent-up emotions, a good cry can calm your mind and body enough to help you fall asleep more easily and achieve a more peaceful rest. Now, I'm laughing because if you grew up in the days of getting a spanking, you knew that, getting a good spanking every now and then would just help you to go to sleep. Why? Because you were going to cry for a little while, if nothing more than that your feelings were hurt. But the next thing you knew, you woke up fresh and refreshed. Those tears helped to put you to sleep, calm you down, and helped you to sleep well. Okay? I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying a good cry does help you go to sleep. So also, crying can elicit support from others because socially other people can see that we're in need, and they will sometimes move in to connect with us and to help us. Also, it can strengthen social bonds because crying is vulnerable, it's intimate. And so when we are vulnerable in front of other people, it lets other people know that we could be a safe place for them as well. And it can be a safe connection made there. Now, of course, that's assuming that we're not using tears to manipulate, and that's a whole nother topic. But either way, basically, just don't use tears to manipulate, okay? Let those tears flow. Let them do what God gave them to us to work in our bodies. So just to recap, we know that tears can help with emotional healing. They can help to calm us and bring us into a calm, relaxed state. They can help to aid with sleep, helping us to sleep better. They help to relieve stress hormones from the body. There are a lot of benefits to tears. God knew what he was doing, right? So let's just look at a couple scriptures concerning tears. And this is one that's popular. Most of us probably know Psalm 56:8. It says, "You've kept count of my tossing, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book?" So we know that God does not ignore our tears. He sees our tears because he knows that they're connected to what is in our heart. And our hearts are important to him. So then we look at the famous scripture. We all know this, and this is why we know that not only is it okay, but it was God's design for men to cry, because Jesus, man of all men, he wept. And this is John 11:35. We love to quote that scripture because it's just two words. Jesus wept. And we can say why he cried. Was he crying because Lazarus had passed? Was he crying because of their unbelief? We don't know, but we do know what? That Jesus did weep. He didn't just weep here, but he also wept while he was praying in the garden. And finally, Romans 12:15 encourages us to rejoice with those that rejoice and weep with those that weep. So it's okay to give people space to cry. It's okay to give ourselves space to cry. It is part of God's natural design for us. So if you have lost your tears and you've decided that you're not going to cry, just think about some of the benefits that we've been missing out on by not allowing that natural process to take place. And the next time you have a few minutes to yourself and you feel that welling up on the inside and that urge to resist those tears, why not just let them flow? And let your heart get tenderized. Let your heart be soft again so you can connect with yourself, connect with God, and connect with those around you. Go ahead and get your tears back. I did, and I hope you'll do the same. Thank you for joining me today on the journey. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.